Guess who's calling? Mike from around the world. God bless you, Mike. Let me get this cranked up here. All right, there you are. I think they can hear you good. I apologize, Mike, to you and to everyone.
Not a problem.
But my wife's trying to get in the door there, and she's made it. Okay, we're traveling. We had unforeseen delays that we did not know was going to happen. We thought we was going to be in the hotel here on our way and in plenty of time for the show, but unforeseen delays. So we're really sorry. So Mike, thank you for being so kind and gracious to willing to start this late. We don't have to go as long as normal. We'll just go however long you want to go.
Well, it's up to you. It's no big deal.
All right, Mike.
No big deal.
All right, Mike. Well, I titled this show, "Is This the End of the World?" And we show a nuclear bomb going off, but I'm not saying that that's about to happen, but there's so many things happening that, where do you, the camera's on right here. Okay, Hanson. So Mike, to start with you.
I'd say it's the end of the world as we know it.
Okay.
Possibly. That would be a fair statement.
Walk us through it. What's the biggest thing happening right now?
Well, I'm sure that maybe everybody possibly may be aware of some of the ultimatums that were given to Putin, and that he didn't take too kindly to the, I believe it was 4 phone calls back to back over the UK, over US and Russia relations. And so he is steaming right now. Putin is not in a very good mood right now. And some of his words he was using, well, he hinted to the fact that he's going to call the bluff of the U.S. He hinted towards that fact.
Okay, did he do that in the media, or how did he do that?
Well, he did part of that in media, 2 parts in a phone call. He was consistently saying that the USA has basically overstepped its boundaries once again, but this time, it will not go unnoticed. This time, Russia will act. Putin's getting warmed up is what he's doing. And again, some of the operations he's having in Ukraine is to test the resolve of other countries.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. What if Putin is utilizing the Ukraine for this specific reason? Because they are in the best interest of NATO, right?
Right.
To draw NATO's tactics out is to begin to mess with one of their countries that has minimal response. So the Ukraine would be this perfect element to both take and to test the resolve of NATO, right?
Right.
And so he's been doing that. He's been watching everything very closely. Very smart people in the USA who they're extremely smart. They have been warning of the same thing, that he's been watching everything. He's watching everything, and he's learning tactics. He's gauging to see what he can and cannot do. And again, he's sharing that information with China, and Iran, by the way. They're in the middle of an op. I know it looks one way in the news, but what if these protests could be purposed, highly purposed?
Right? Yeah.
Because it is, well, you could say it's out of character for Iran to have any protest of this length for so long. That's never happened before.
No,
right? Not like this.
Usually they put it down. They usually will stamp it down fast. They won't let.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. But if they're helping to maneuver troops and individuals, well, then there you go. For example, you have a lot of soldiers who fought in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
I believe the number right now is over 60 to 100,000. They are in Russia right now, right? You have a lot of Russian capable commanders who have been training in Iran. You have a lot of Iranian soldiers who have been shipped to Syria, right? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, they're rotating in and out of Russia, going toward the Ukraine. The Ukraine is more like a hook, if you would, to draw NATO out. And so here we are. The countries that are in danger from this are Europe, of course. Europe and Rome. They're going to be the first 2.
Wow.
nations that will likely fall when Russia actually reaches out, because they haven't yet. They still have yet to use their mainline forces, and it's not good that most people don't understand that Russia has an unbelievable force behind him.
Yes.
Believe me, he's not used it. He's using float troops or inexperienced troops to do what he has, which is why you see some of that brutality that's happening in the Ukraine from Russia. That comes from the Czechs, some of the folks from Syria, some of the folks from Iran. It's not really coming from mainline Russian soldiers, and they are brutal. They have the same Middle Eastern practices. ISIS is within the ranks of that Russian element. And so we have a situation here because his forces are growing. You're looking at Iran, Russia together, right? With those outcasts of Syria, with some of the ones from some of the troops from Lebanon, some of the troops from all over that region. And we're talking numbers in the millions here. We're talking a lot of soldiers at his disposal.
So, Mike, now that he's received the ultimatum, as you said, he's had conversation on the phone. I take it with the United States and or NATO personnel. I'm sure it wasn't pleasant, but at the end of the day, I guess my question is there a lot of troop movements? I mean, in other words, is there a lot of assets that are moving around right now that he's testing to see what the limits are, you think?
Yeah. He's actually, there is some positioning taking place. The USA, our Navy is, we have to make some moves, not just for Russia, but for China. The conversations or discussions that took place have evidently put quite a few forces on the move. And so there are going to be some surprise positions that will take place with our Navy. People should get ready for that. Also, there are deployments that are taking place right now. So, and they will continue throughout this winter, right? Because we're looking at, I think we're in the last week of that preparedness time that was given week and a half ago. We're in the last week. So this is after the end of this week, sometime around Tuesday or Wednesday, expect some, some words to fly, and who knows what else. Many people suspect that what may happen is a type of offensive could take place.
Yeah. When
That's
you say
NATO
that,
offensive.
a NATO offensive.
Yeah, that could take place after Wednesday because somebody's going to have to make a move. Because
after Wednesday,
there are no negotiations.
So after Wednesday, somebody's going to make a move because there is no more. The ultimatum apparently comes with a timeline or a drop dead date. So somebody's going to move. I guess the question is, does the world wait for Putin to strike, or does the world strike first if they see that's where he's going? And by the way, is it nuclear that he may use, or is it something else?
If Putin attacks NATO, he cannot do it in a small region. That's somewhat, that just wouldn't be a...
In other words, he can't just do it in Ukraine, not just Ukraine or something. He has to do something bigger.
Well, he could, if he were just to hit the Ukraine, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But to hit sovereign territory of NATO, you're looking at multiple countries who would respond. They will respond. So that being in his mind, he's been probing to see who's going to act and who won't. Based on that, whatever he's gathered, some type move will be made next week, and it will likely be brutal. Now, NATO could be forced into making some type of offensive move, and a lot of this is weighed in the balance with Taiwan to see exactly what that actual position is there, because that's still a wild card, right?
Right.
To see what she is going to do. But his Navy outnumbers ours. They have been busy in the last 15 years, and they have built, their Navy is incredible. It really is incredible. You're looking at a country who's had their hands on just about everybody's electronics. they have come to find out they have two particle accelerators that are, one of them they're saying is a little more advanced than CERN. You're also looking at a country that could have cracked the fusion issue, right?
Okay.
And also a country who is igniting a star. They're one of the ones that there's only two facilities on the Earth, if I'm not mistaken. China is one of them who can artificially ignite a sun, right, to actually achieve certain types of fusion.
Yeah.
And so, things are really not what we used to know them as. I had a lot of people had confidence in the powers of the USA because we're like the police officers of the world. But of course, without police officers, we become like some of the towns we had examples for in the news where the police officers were pushed out and anarchy stepped in. And so the world becomes that type of environment as people, stumble over themselves to get themselves into a higher seat. But China is making moves. We've rested a bit too long. We haven't been ambitious enough, consistent enough as far as building. We've diverted building funds for our defense into other things we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay, now with China and Taiwan and China maybe in other regions. First of all, President Xi is basically become the emperor of China. They just gave him an extra 5 years, and that makes and he pretty well just dismissed his opposition and just removed him from the meeting. So there's not really going to be any opposition now. So is China doing that because they're about ready to make a move on Taiwan, or do you see the Taiwan thing something that may happen after the Russian ultimatum? Something develops.
Actually, now we have forces out there right now, and they're on patrol all the time. They're watching very closely, but in truth, that could happen at any moment. External of anything happening with Russia, that could actually happen at any moment, and it really depends on China's mindset. What they see. So that's why we're very careful of what we say about China. Have you noticed?
Yes.
They talk about Putin, but they will not talk about China for a lot of reasons. Lots of our communications systems, they have a core. Their core systems are built in China, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot. The military already went through a phase where they took the chips out that China made that we were utilizing. They took them out. Some people may know that a lot of cars have been just sitting in a certain spot because of the chips were not made for these cars. That was a lot of money lost. So we still have more communications equipment with Chinese chips in them. And so people have this, certain phones, certain devices may have Chinese chips in them. They are loaded, in other words, with a satellite signal or a certain type of broad infrared transmission, right? They could turn those chips off or control some type of hidden code in people's computer systems or people's, the little devices, little innocent devices, to really tamper with our infrastructure and everything else. The estimated count of devices would be a little over 20 million devices are in the U.S. with Chinese chips.
Oh, you're probably talking cars and
cars. Most of the cars have been they've been changed, but what you can't change are like a piece of amplifier equipment, possibly a Blu-ray disc, a player. People won't change that, but they still have Chinese manufactured chips in them, right?
Okay.
And within a chip, just to give you an idea of what a tiny chip the size of your pinky tip would hold, it could hold if electronics were at a standard size. One of those chips could hold, if you would fill up probably a 5,000 square foot home with electronic components of standard size, that's what's on a chip, right? Wow. So you're looking at a massive amount of electronics smashed into a little tiny chip, which could potentially do anything. It's not like anybody's going to do forensic work to back engineer it to see exactly what they did, because that would take years. So they do have embedded systems that they can activate remotely, and that's a big issue. That's why they're not too They're just not going to do too much with China. We just have to watch.
So what? Basically, I'm going to go all the way back to the Clinton administration, Al Gore, and his trip to China and to Tibet, hanging out with the monks. But during that process, I remember this very well. There was Chinese technology. There was American technology that was transferred into the hands of the Chinese, and there was some members of Congress that were trying to raise the level of awareness. Like, what are we doing? This is a dumb thing to do.
Yeah.
And but that didn't stop. The China policy continued, even with George W. Bush coming in, and then Obama right behind him. I mean, haven't we just got in bed deep with China, acting like what? They'll never ever turn on us? Is that what's happened?
Yeah, we have, and we have. Not like we back or partner with them, but we know how they are. They have spies in every single country, right? The only reason they're back in the 70s, the Chinese Air Force, Chinese Army, all these components were, nothing to worry about, right? But from the 70s to the 80s, these guys were copying Russian technology, U.S. technology, replicating everything they got their hands on. Every single loss we had of missile launches, aircraft, you name it, they have grabbed, back engineered, copied, and made improvements too. They have Generation 6 fighters. That's why we're rushing out our fighters now and trying to bolster the effect that to tell everybody we have Gen 6 fighters, but China had Gen 6 fighters. This is their second year they've had Gen 6 fighters.
So we're behind. We're behind them.
Yeah, we are. And the problem was we were too complacent, too complicit with Chinese folks being over here that we knew shouldn't have been over here, but because they helped to grow our economy, they kind of overlooked it. Which is why President Trump, he went through a bunch of red tape to get these people out of the country because he knew they were here, and he was actively looking for them because he's a business person, right? So he knows what they're doing. He knows exactly where they are. Anyway, we had them over here, so they had direct access to our technology. They were in Texas, they were in California, they were in Silicon Valley. They were subservient to China, so they were sending all of our advancements there. We had them in JPL, we had them in NASA, we had them in other places. So yeah, the Chinese have an ability because their children go to school every day, right? Not just a few days out of the week, every single day. And the equivalency, a child in China at the age of let's just say the sixth grade in China is more like the 12th grade here in the USA. That's how advanced their kids are. And I mean, in a lot of ways. So they have an ability, right, to take all this engineered stuff and improve upon it and really crank it out. So our military is, there's a lot of people nervous. We don't know what the outcome will be. And in all honesty, no one knows what the outcome will be. But if it ever came down to a war between China and the USA, we may have some issues because, again, we have gotten, we kind of laid back. We began to turn ourselves inward, and we enjoyed the spoils of our position, but we were not hungry, and our development suffered from that. And so China never did. They kept going. They took everything Russia has, China has plus. So they improved everything Russia has.
So even though we are looking at Russia as the immediate possible danger threat to United States and or NATO countries or let's say Europe, China is really the bigger problem.
They are. In fact, many people say that by the end of this year, China is going to be the world power as far as their capabilities are concerned. That is troubling. That's troubling. And this is not new, Pastor Paul. This is year 3 where China, they saw China growing and how they have become so advanced, positioned themselves to make things none of us could believe that, right? These guys, they utilize everything. For example, on their Gen 5 fighters, they have their radar, right? Their active radar has a dual capability. Their radar can also destroy aircraft. right? So their radar
Wow.
can be used. We could do it too, but we never built them that way because of regulations and this, that, and the other. But they can use their radar not only to detect other aircraft, but to reverse the waves inside of it and destroy other aircraft, right?
Wow.
They can absolutely obliterate everything. They have an EMP shield on the front of those aircraft too. So if one of their aircraft were to come through, it would have I think it's like a 300-mile radius in front of that aircraft, like a shield. But it's an EMP. Everything they fly through and everything in front of it's going to die, right? It's just going to die.
But it won't hurt.
Against that. That's a missile shield.
Yeah.
So if a missile is flying towards one of their aircraft, its electronics are going to be scrambled. Right? And it won't do anything. And they'll have, they have gotten this far, right?
So they will turn. So they're going to use like sort of like kinetic energy. They're going to turn our own infrastructure, our own technology, our own weaponry, our own everything against us. In other words, they can hijack it. Is basically besides EMPs.
Yeah. Think of it this way: they can hijack consumer products and use consumer products in America against the infrastructure, against the military. They don't need our lasers. China's number one in development of lasers, right? They know what they're doing with lasers. They have a handheld laser, a diode laser that's 800 watts, right? That's more than a CO2 laser, which is quite strong. That's stronger than a fiber laser. And so somehow they have made a diode laser. That's supposed to be impossible, by the way, but it's 800 watts of power in that laser. That's incredible. And you can hold that thing in your hand and power that thing with a 4.58 battery or something like that. So these guys they just devote themselves to engineering and all those things. Plus, they're second as far as these UFO encounter things.
Okay.
Right? Because let's say it shouldn't be a secret that we have actually sucked up everything we can to see how things work. Well, they've been doing the same thing, right? Yep. They've been doing the same thing. So has Russia. Russia led the way in that. Germany kind of started to lead the way in World War II. The USA picked up where they left off, and China really made some advancements with what they're doing, because in their country it's no secret about this UFO stuff. If anybody ever finds anything, right, they have bureaus that person can go to and begin to develop technology from whatever they found. So there you are.
Wow. Folks, we got Mike around the world tonight. We're sorry it's a late start. We had some travel. We didn't think this was going to happen to us, but we're here, we're live. And is this the end of the world? There's so many things that could cause that. When we say end of the world, we're not saying that the lights go out and everything is gone, but it could be the end of the age. It could be the soon arrival of Jesus Christ. Mike, are we on the brink of Ezekiel 38? Do you think? I mean, we've got Russia, we got Turkey, we've got Iran. We've got a lot of other nations that are hostile toward free nations. A lot of that going on. Do you feel that Ezekiel and oh, by the way, Israel is feeling a lot of pressure. It's like the hook might be in the jaw when it comes to Russia. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I've never been an extremist, so I don't look for the worst situation to take place. I'm aware of things, right? But I have a pretty good outlook on things, pretty good pulse for things. I have to say, for the first time, I think this is it. I really do. And when I say that, I mean that this lifestyle we have been living, this nonchalant lifestyle where everybody can afford to, sit back for 10 hours to make up their mind about one decision. I believe that those days are over. I believe that all of us are going to have pressures here and there. I believe that started. Everything begins spiritual, I've noticed over my lifetime, meaning with a person's spirit or spirituality, sometimes you have pressures. And I've noticed that when a person if they are shuffled spiritually, in other words, they can't quite get themselves grounded because there are too many tensions all the way around them spiritually. I've noticed that it's only a matter of months before the entire world is that way. I've also noticed that whatever the church goes through, right, the world goes through next. For example, in, I believe it was 2013 and 14, right before ISIS was forming, people in the church began to fight each other, right? They began to try, and you had these people that would go out and say, well, God gave me this mission to tear down this ministry and that ministry, right?
No.
They called it, here's what they called it, to expose something. Or to, you know, to pass judgment. When people had that in their hearts spiritually.
You talked about I remember being on interviewing you about 4 or 5 years ago, and you would bring that up periodically, that these people run around saying, we're going to expose this, or we're going to unmask this, or we're going to show you what this preacher or this ministry is about. And you came against that pretty hard.
Yeah, and then ISIS broke out right after that. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
ISIS broke out right after. In fact, with the folks that I know, I said, "Now watch, spiritually, this will take place. That will manifest in the earth some type of way." Well, now what do we have now? We have everybody in the spirit they've stopped playing games to a degree, right? You have some people out there that are still off the wire, but for the most part, people are sincerely trying to find out if they're going to be saved or not. That's what they're really concerned about, their own salvation, right? I did a survey not too long ago asking who is not sure about their relationship with Christ, Pastor Paul. Then the sheer number of folks that came back saying, "I'm not sure about my relationship with Christ." So that's the spiritual condition of people. As a result of that, we look at our politics and the way the world is running. Nobody is sure, right? It's almost like the confidence. A type of confidence is gone. They put a lot of things into question, and now people are really thinking, what's going on with our country? It's almost like everybody woke up at the same time saying, "What's wrong with our country? What happened? I was sleeping. What took place? Why are we in this, position? Why is this so difficult? What's going on with this?" And so, in the world, these things are spreading. People are unsure about leadership. They're unsure about people, their neighbors. They're unsure. As a result of that, a type of blame game has come to the forefront. But something else is happening too. There's almost a spiritual shaking that's beginning to develop, meaning people are beginning to contemplate some of the bitterness associated with the end times. Right? At first, it was sweet in their mouth, but right now it's turning a little bitter because we're close to nuclear war. Yep. We're close to war. I believe that World War III began with in the cyber world. That's what I believe. It began in the cyber world.
So, in other words, World War III is on already. It's already begun. Yeah.
I believe it's branching out. It's just manifesting in several different ways. But you have that breaking out, and people they're starting to be concerned about where they actually fit. Right. And they're also rechecking their foundations, because a lot of people are saying, what is this? It's almost like the Lord is showing. He's having everything unzipped. The truth of many things is being shown. It's not that anything is changing. It's just that evil they have no appetite to hide evil anymore. If a person is truly evil, they don't care. Because the world doesn't care if a person is evil. The world doesn't care if a person is highly iniquitous anymore. As a consequence of that, many things change.
The moral standard. There's no moral compass. It's lawlessness now. Plus people just don't care. There's no more moral standard, I guess is the word here. No more righteousness. Nobody does. They don't care.
Yeah. Same thing that happened back in the ancient times. The bad part about it is, once people start getting on this path where they want to express themselves and be who they are, the next thing is they don't want anybody telling them not to do it, right? This is where, I know we had demonstrations of people who didn't like police officers, but this is where we actually begin to see folks just totally start to rebel against law enforcement, right? In fact, I believe that at some point it's going to get a little tough. It's going to get very tough. And then you're going to see a withdrawal of folks out of certain areas of the USA. You're just going to see that. It's going to be too bad.
When you say withdrawal, people leaving certain regions? Are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are you talking about states trying to succeed from the Union, or just people fleeing?
No. People, imagine if in Chicago, right?
Yep.
Chicago. We know the status of Chicago, but imagine a place like another city comparable to Dallas, Texas. it gets so bad there, nobody wants to be in that area anymore because of theft, right? Because of crime, because of emboldened crimes like they have in California, where in broad daylight people will go and rob a store, they're on camera and everything, and nobody's prosecuted. That's spreading across the USA. I'm telling you now, that's spreading across the USA. And so at some point they're going to have to, that's going to be dealt with. Wintertime is coming. Things are very different this winter. There's going to be a lot of crime. Desperate people will become desperate. They're going to become desperate. Not that things are not going to be available, right? It's the conversation that they constantly hear. Shortage of food. We do have a shortage of food. Shortage of utilities. Right? The gas company is going around putting relays in the ground. You know that, right? So they can shut natural gas off.
Oh, wow. Wait a minute. I just got a thing in the mail that said to me that from now on, the gas lines from the meters to your house, natural gas, is going to be your responsibility. It could cost thousands of dollars if something breaks.
Yep.
Or you can pay us so much money and we'll be in charge. But it also means I'm giving them access to the meters and to the pipelines. And I'm starting to think about that situation in Colorado where these people signed up for this deal and then all of a sudden they just decided to take control of their thermostats. So Mike, am I being...
Well, now they've done one better. They put actual relays in the ground that can shut the gas off to entire neighborhoods. They're digging up the ground now, putting right before it goes to the distribution point, goes to the customer's houses, right before it hits one of those distribution reservoirs. They have a relay that can shut the gas off, right? So essentially, the gas will stop going to the customer's house and turn right around and go back into the system. They've been installing these for the last I say about 6 months. Last 6 months.
Wow.
They've been installing it. So they have the electricity covered. They will have the gas covered by the end of or the middle of November. They will have water covered and sewer covered, right? So all these utilities, they're going to be covered so that a machine. Now, here's the thing. A person is not going to be behind the controls.
Okay.
These are automated systems linked with billing systems. Right. So, for example, if a person gets a overdue notice on their gas, they don't pay their gas, the computer will shut it off. As soon as you make a payment, within a split second, it'll be back on again. Right. So they're doing this all over the country. Now, it starts out with billing, but we all know it feeds into a very smart system that will manage resources across the board. So if one of the major systems says that, the usage of New York is too much, trust me, through the toggling of those relays, they can save the resources. And they're going to do that based on how much they have left. That's Paul. So just like now in our reserve oil, we have about, we have so many million barrels of oil, probably about 80 days worth of oil in reserve.
Wow.
That they actually have. This is the, that Federal Reserve. So if they wanted to save that, you divide that number by those refineries that are utilizing it to change it to, different types of consumables or not consumables, but you know what I mean, for gas and things like that. They divide that number, that goes in the machine, so the machine will regulate how much that thing will output per day or per hour, per minute, per second, whatever the case is. So they have this same regulation system on everything. They're not going to waste a dime. They're not going to waste a dime. And the same thing happened in Europe, right? They did this in Europe. They shut down all those nuclear plants. Remember that?
Yep.
And Elon said, don't do that. Don't shut down your nuclear plants.
Right.
Well, guess what? They already have the military is ready to go. They're being trained, specially trained for civilian containment. Why? Because they know that during the winter time, they're going to have certain areas that will not have any usage of fuel or gas at all. They're encouraging folks to do their best to get prepared for that. It's already cold over there. They already have blackouts. They already have heat that's not going into certain places at certain hours of the day.
Yes.
And so here we are. The same thing is going to hit America. So, that's why I always say people are going to have their tangibles, right? But they won't. It's just like a lot of people are frightened of the money just going totally out. Well, that's not going to happen. We know that by the beast, it's going to be controlled and filtered through a different direction.
That's right.
But what's going to happen is people are going to have money in their pockets, Pascal, but they won't have product.
Yeah, you can't get the product.
They won't have product.
My son's he's got a truck. He's got a Dodge Ram. Battery went out. Okay, so he had to go get a battery. He started picking up the phone and calling the 3 different auto parts stores in the city.
Couldn't get it.
2 of them had no battery. 1 had 1 for his truck.
Yeah.
One bat, and the guy said, "You better come and get it."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how in the world have we got to the point that you can't even get a battery for your truck? How, are we this short on everything, or what's causing? So we're running out of oil, we're running out of gas, electricity. We don't. Our infrastructure can't keep up with it. Turn down your thermostats in the winter. Turn up your thermostat in the summer. Baby food, we can't get baby food, baby formula. We don't have enough of it. We can't find nothing nowhere, parts to anything.
That's going to be the problem. And
is this
remember we talked about?
Is it by design, or is it?
Sure it is. Sure it is. Here's the fact: we have enough oil to supply the world with oil for years.
Right.
We do, but they're not going to pump that out. All right. What they've done. Here's what they do. Here's what they essentially do. They'll write down. They'll estimate by the census. Now this is so dumb. By the census, they will allot resources per year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
They'll do that by the census. And because they trust their own people, they will write. If they wrote a story, Pastor Paul, if they wrote up a story that was just a story, a fake story, they would actually believe it and begin to live by the story they wrote. That's how cuckoo they have become.
Yeah.
Right? They believe in their own writings. So by way of the census, they allocate resources. They won't go over the number they have entered, or they have agreed that this is going to be the stop number. Even if they had years and years and years and years of oil in the ground, which they do, they're not going to utilize that. Why? Because the book says they have 0. So they have hit their mark.
This is all about control. Food control. I was just talking to my brother-in-law. He had told me that in the small community we're from in Indiana, that 1,000 acres of farmland had been purchased. And he started saying, "Who bought it? Who bought it?" Because he knows everybody. And finally, he figured it out. It was bought by China, a Chinese conglomerate. And guess what? They're not going to farm. They're going to put solar panels up. And that 1,000 acres of what was beautiful, rich farmland that grew corn, black dirt that grows corn. Nope. Now it's going to have so. It sounds to me, it feels like there's this limit. There's going to be limits on everything. And so who gets to have what is based on what? Social score? What's going on here?
Well, the new system is going to dictate who has. We know the beast is coming. Fastball teach that all the time. So we know the beast is coming. We know the beast kingdom is coming.
Yep.
We know that without the mark, you're not going to be able to buy and sell. Yep. They are setting up so that one system will govern everything. They're setting up now. This is not only in the USA, this is overseas, because we all operate by the same. When we had this supply shortage, they changed the program. They took Walmart's program, right, that the U.S. Army utilizes for logistics, because it is a very advanced program. It's almost foolproof, but they took that program and put special parameters in that program, which is why, like at hardware stores, and all these automotive stores, they have a supply system going where, if, like your son got that battery, right?
Yep.
Now, one battery will take its place, not 2, not 3, one battery will take its place. So the next time somebody calls, they say, "Yep, we got one." And they'll do this every single day, right? What they're doing this with grocery stores too. Yeah. That's beginning to spread. Walmart is, they're about to shut down a big percentage of Walmart.
Of the stores.
They're about to shut it down because they're going to a different supply system, which means now this supply system goes all the way back to the manufacturer, which eventually hits, people who make items and farmers. They're not going to be farming as much. Now, what they're going to do is have this forced system. I hate to say this, where certain people die out, period. They're going to die out because they won't have the supply for them.
Oh,
right?
okay.
They're just going to die out. And when these people die out, they're going to increase. Now, just watch to see the death rate. The sickness rate, watch all of it rise. All of a sudden, it's going to rise.
Globally, especially your third
medication is being limited,
yeah.
right? You have medications limited, things like that. All these things are going to be, they're going to be limited. They're going to be controlled, and a certain number of people are going to die off. They know how many people are going to die off from this, and there's no mechanism in the way to stop it. In fact, most people can't even see that, Pastor Paul. They cannot see that this supply and demand system that they're utilizing right now, it's not going to reach the person who can barely scrape up enough to go and get something. There'll be nothing left for that person to scrape up with. Yeah. And so, they're going to, and then people will begin to fight over, one specific item or something like that. In fact, that's already happening. They're just not going to publicize that, right? You already have, in these smaller grocery stores, many of those are shutting down because they can't get hold of product.
No, they can't.
They just can't do it unless they have their own farms. And even those who have their own farms, with the new regulations that come the beginning of 2023, they're going to be limited on what they can do. Because once you start having a person maintain federal guidelines and standards, well, they're going to find out they can't farm in certain places.
And that's kind of what they're doing to the Amish right now. We see that in Indiana. We go to these farmers markets, and the Amish will show up there. We know they don't have GMO food. They have good food. They have fresh meat. They have milk. Okay, fresh milk. But the label they're required to put on their milk is not for human consumption.
Yep.
It's better.
See how it is.
I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. Yet you're supposed to go to the store and buy synthetic milk.
Yeah. That's absolute control. And
it's control.
Nobody knows what's in that milk. People think the little vaccine was bad. Just imagine getting all those ingredients in foods we know nothing about. We ingest them all. We don't know what's happening. Pray over your food, people. Always do that.
Yeah.
I know, always do. But we are really living in a time where the world we knew is gone. It's gone.
Over.
It's not even here anymore.
It's gone.
It's not here.
So we're in a different age. We've almost basically entered into the Antichrist beast kingdom age. We don't have an Antichrist yet visible, but the beast, the kingdom itself is being implemented, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they have to have a seat so he can sit down in it. The beast. Well, the beast kingdom itself is pretty vast. And I'll tell you something. By the way they communicate, you would think that the beast system had been here for a couple of years. You really would. This character named Maitreya, they keep bringing his name up.
Who?
All over the place. The Maitreya.
Yes.
This character, but you know what? That's a character that's weird. And do you not know they had prayers to this thing in the White House? See it.
Oh, so it's an entity. It's some kind of a demonic entity or principality then.
It is. It's almost like a copycat of Christ is what it is.
Wow.
Well, even right now, there's stories from high-level folks that say if this individual can touch a stream, water, anything else, and if you drink from that water, you're going to be healed of anything. Those stories are spreading. They've basically been maintained down to the southern hemisphere line, but they have trickled up to our neighborhood. Now, having said that, there are going to be some repercussions in the U.S. and in Europe and in the U.K. and in certain places who had an ability to put an end to that, right? Because when something starts fighting the faith in Christ, that's when we have a national problem. I know they call everything else a national problem, but mark my words, watch something happen right there in DC, because they are pushing Christ even further away by these policies they're letting loose, Pastor Paul. And when they do this with a smile on their face, they have forgotten how they formed in the first place. That's going to have repercussions. Repercussions will come.
So I am in 100% agreement with you, Mike, that the beast kingdom is being implemented. The seat of the beast is being established. The Antichrist is probably alive. The individual who will fill that role, I think he's certainly alive. and just hasn't been brought to the table. And as you said, the beast kingdom, the seat of the beast has to be established. The components that to eliminate people, the depopulation, whether it be Agenda 21 or this global sustainability that the UN keeps preaching for Agenda 2030. We certainly are seeing this manifest because of the shorting supplies, whether it be food, whether it be water, whether it be medical supplies, access to surgery, to anything. I mean, everything is being limited, controlled, which means people will be dying because they just can't get stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they are. Even now, just by not being able to receive proper medical care, we've had quite a few people go. COVID-19 took out quite a few people. So we seem to have this issue with people. This whole generation. It seems like an entire generation, right, is gone. They're not here anymore. But I still say that Christians, those who really believe in Christ, still they have nothing to worry about.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
I tell you what, I'm a living testament to that. Pastor Paul, you are too.
Yep.
Because the Lord has kept us from too much. My life could be so terrible right now, right? It could be terrible. I could be so worse off. But the Lord sustains me just enough to keep going. And I'm thankful for that. Also, there's supernatural things happening to people these days. They shouldn't be maintained. Certain people shouldn't be maintained. I can almost guarantee you that a lot of your listeners, they have the same story. They shouldn't be in the position they're in, but somehow they are. They're not even clear how they are. But that's God's sustainment of those true believers, right? What did one of the apostles said? We're persecuted. We're pressed on every side, but we're not discouraged. We're not,
nobody took us
down yet.
Right.
We're still going.
That's
so,
right.
So there you are with that.
Amen. Amen. Mike, so I appreciate you coming on this late, and I apologize that it happened this way, but you brought out some phenomenal points here tonight that you're saying, the end of the world, well, it's the end of the world as we knew it. It's as we know it now. It's not the same world. We'll never go back, will it? We're not going back to, is this a new normal? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this is a changing normal. And you know what, Pastor? We still didn't discuss the winter. It's coming.
Well, okay. Well, wait a minute. Do you got 5 more minutes? Tell me about the winter.
Yeah, dude. You know what? Most people are not. Nobody's talking about the winter.
No.
Nobody is, and they seem to ignore the sheer amount of rainfall that we had. Right? That's going to translate into ice. Some of the temperatures that we've had, some of the temperature differences that we've had, they're going to make for some very dangerous conditions. Also, when the snow thaws, the streets and everything else, they're going to start buckling. This year, when the snow broke, right, we had buckling in the highways. This year we did.
Yeah.
This year. They had contracted out, the government did this. They sent out many different contracts to prepare these, get these roads repaired quick. Some sort of phenomenon is cracking up the highways. They're starting to give way. Things are starting to happen, and the sinkholes will come back right after this winter. Pastor Paul, we have no water. It's almost like the water in the earth is gone. We all saw the Mississippi, right?
Yes.
The Mississippi has been low before.
Where's the water at? Where's the water? Where's the water for the Mississippi and the Colorado River and Lake Mead and Lake Powell?
There you go. But all of it's leaving. All of it's leaving. And they know they have salt water taking its place. That's called saltwater intrusion, just in case anybody doesn't know. But we have this. That's bad for the environment. Salt water will kill the environment. They have, in Washington State, they have areas where trees have died because of saltwater intrusion. Right? That's going to start happening all over the place. So whatever, if a person has a farm, irrigation, all that stuff set up, if that salt water comes in, Pastor Paul, they're going to have to stop irrigation quickly. Right? Yeah. But then if they don't have irrigation, nothing will grow, because in some of these farms, the only reason things grow is because of irrigation. And so we're going to have some problems. We also have lots of insect migrations. That's guaranteed to bring new viruses to the USA, to Canada, to different places. We have, it's about 25 species of very venomous spiders that came up from South America.
What?
We don't carry that. We're not used to it. We don't have a defense system against those things. And they're starting to migrate. Spiders and as the rodents leave and go north, right, these insects are coming up this way, which means the scorpions in Arizona will be found all the way in New York, right?
That's
so
crazy.
that's just not good.
No,
and we know that insects, once they start multiplying, it's not like you can stop them. These things are resilient, and they do a lot of different things. So I believe this year they had a brown recluse problem, right? There are certain varieties of brown recluse spiders, but in this case, there were a lot that came up from South America. And some of the bigger spiders, trapdoor species, were found up here. There are lots of casualties from bites. Folks, you know what? Prayer and seriousness and faith is going to keep a person, because the Lord can negate venom at any time. You know, Pastor Paul, this time that we're in right now is really going to make the difference. It's going to separate the flock from those who truly believe and those who have just been playing around with their salvation. But there's going to be a separation on that, because it will be too many unknowns to deal with, right?
In other words, we're going to have to believe God for when he says that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. We're going to have to believe God when he said, I'll supply every need according to riches and glory in Christ. We're going to have to believe God that by his stripes we are truly healed, because we're not going to get the medicine. We're going to have to believe God that if we drink any deadly poison, it won't hurt us. Or if we eat any bad food, it won't hurt us. Because, so in other words, you're saying we're going to separate the men from the boys when it comes to real faith and Christian living. Living by faith. A lot of people talk a good game, but man, you're talking about really living by faith.
That's right. That's right. And they're going to have to walk that walk, or it will show.
Now, why will this winter, is this winter going to be, look, we just had 3 nights ago, they had a foot of snow in Montana, and I mean, I know it's late October. I know sometimes they get some snow, but these were huge blizzards way early. Is this the beginning of the dark winter?
Well, yeah, it's, Pastor, since we have a lot of these particulates coming into the atmosphere, right? Not only do they have to change orbits of satellites because of friction, where they had no friction before. They have friction now, which is heating up the spacecraft as they move. So this is also compressing the cloud tops, increasing the pressure in those areas. So the altitude no longer has to be at 250,000 feet, right? To have one of those super high tops, it can be much lower than that now, because everything is compressed. We also have atmospheric layers changing for the first time in recorded history. They're finding this out more and more with jets and how jets fly, and their contrails and everything else. All the properties are changing. They also switched over lots of the avionics to digital avionics because of the fluctuations and miscalibration of certain items that they had in aircraft that had analog systems. So all these things were this past season with all the rain, right?
Yeah.
Just think, the sky has a super potential to hold twice as much moisture as it did a couple of years ago.
Are you serious?
So that's going to translate into twice as much snow or ice, either or. Because in this case, we could have, due to sheer temperature differences and these higher pressures. Now, everybody should also know that wind speeds are much higher in the winter than they are in the summer, right? So not only are we going to have cold, because it could literally be, 30 degrees one day and 88 the next day, followed by 30 that night, kind of like desert temperatures.
Yes.
But a little different, because we have a lot of temperate forest regions in the USA. That's going to cause these mega snowstorms, right? Thunder, it'll be a lot more thunder, snowstorms happening.
Yep.
A lot of icing. Icing is going to be terrible because of those temperature fluctuations. It won't give, when it snows, it's not going to give the ground, it's not going to stay cold long enough in certain areas for that snow to actually just remain snow. It's going to melt and turn into water. Then it will refreeze, so on and so forth. And then you're going to have temperatures that will skim, that freeze point. Ice storms. Canada will likely have some pretty bad ice storms. Your northern portions, although I say all the way down to North Carolina, all the way over to California, they're going to have ice storms. And I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia, if their entire weather system, their weather trend changes this winter, right? It's going to be very challenging. And we already have issues with transportation. So you can imagine snow, which will inhibit travel, also making it difficult, right?
Now, when you say that Well, you say that the sky can hold way more water before it rains or before it snows. Why can the sky all of a sudden hold more?
Changes.
Because of pressure.
Okay. That's right. Because when a storm forms, right, you have dust in the upper atmosphere. Water molecules start to stick on dust particles, right? Especially when it's lots of moisture up there, humid up there, so on and so forth. But all of that is based upon pressure. You have to have right pressure conditions to form, storm clouds, cumulonimbus clouds, and all these things.
Yes.
But now it doesn't take that much to form them, right? So you have all this moisture in the ground that has evaporated, gone up into the atmosphere,
and it's hanging up there. That's why
it's almost like it's stuck.
So in other words, while it's hanging up in the air, our rivers are running dry down here.
That's right.
And then when it does rain, it's like big, huge rain bomb, floods outrageous over here, and droughts over here.
That's right. And the more the compression event continues, right, the more potential the atmosphere will have to hold rain. But listen, all of this will be followed by zero potential to hold rain, because once the compression point gets to a certain level, a certain atmospheric level, right, storm clouds will not form anymore. They won't form anymore.
I mean, yeah, but that would bring great famine and great drought. Oh, that's Matthew 24.
That's what we're in for.
Is Planet X or this binary system, is that contributing to some of this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're not going to be. They're having a hard time, especially from people who have certain insights. They're having a hard time hiding some of the phenomena that's taking place out in space. This is from amateur astronomers, right? As the days continue to go on, they're going to have a harder and harder time. People will see objects in the sky, new constellations. There'll be a constellation nobody ever saw before. I like to see them answer that one.
I can't figure that one out. Yes.
That will pass. That will look like we have a second moon or something coming to join us. And all these things are happening in tandem. They're just not going to be able to hide them. But you'll see as time goes on, things will become so diverse, so different, they won't even care to hide it, right? Because new leadership is coming in.
Yeah.
Brand new leadership. You got to remember this, that the folks that are in charge right now, they still have some reasonable amount of maturity and responsibility. But we have a brand new generation coming into leadership right now. They don't care about democratic values.
No, they don't.
They don't care about that, because you're looking at a set of people who only saw their parents argue, right, through the old Democratic Republican system. And so this republic is certainly going to change, and Europe is going to change at the same time. So get ready for a leadership swap across the board, right? That means the remainder of the generation that's been leaving, the rest will eventually, they're going to be people passing away that, we'll take a blow for it, but people just won't be here past Paul. They're going to have their replacements who have new ideas. They're more aggressive, less disciplined, and they're not concerned about maintaining any political values or founding values. They're not concerned about that. They're concerned about efficiency, right? So if they have to cram everybody in a tiny little home, then so be it.
That's what they're talking. That's what they say they want to do. January 5th. I don't want to let you get away without mentioning January 5th. That's the date you put out there that we're going to be the first encounter. Our solar system is going to have some kind of major encounter. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the effects of this, or what this might be?
Well, I'll tell you what, Basketball, we have had, everybody has had an example of bursts that happen in space, like the gamma rays shot through us from a supernova. And of course, people can read about magnetars, and that how a, 1 inch by 1 inch cube shifted on a magnetar star, and it caused an explosion so big that, many thousands of years later, it hit the Earth and still sheared off part of our atmosphere, which, by the way, that's what caused all the meetings on global warming. That's what caused it. That magnetar scared people to pieces. Okay. Number one, it was traveling very fast. They saw it, but they didn't know what it was going to do. When they saw the effects of it, they all said the same thing: we cannot withstand a direct hit. It would take off our atmosphere, and everybody on one half of the Earth would burn up if that ever happens again. And they know that they have seen other anomalies that look just like that magnetar explosion. So I'll be the first to say we have more magnetar bursts coming our way, right?
So
are going to, they're just not going to be friendly. If they hit us, if they hit, say, like the North Pole, it's going to take off 3/4, or I'll say 1/4 of our atmosphere. If that takes place, Pastor Paul, there's no protection from solar winds. In that same minute, the second it whips it off, solar winds are going to touch the surface of the earth, and it will fry everything in its path. It'll do this for about, I'd say, a good hour, right? It'll burn for an hour. They already had these effects. Nobody could see it. Right in the heart of the Arctic, they saw things burn. They had an area nobody could go into, or it would be like stepping into a microwave oven. That was, nobody could go into that area. It was essentially hot, highly irradiated, and people did die. So that, imagine that effect, but it covers, several cities.
So in other words, this January 5th, so in other words, the magnetar, they can see, they already know there's these massive explosions. They know there's stuff coming as far as more bursts from magnetars that are coming from, and maybe that they're all part of the original magnetar that we just got. I mean, maybe there was such an explosion from a supernova somewhere out there that we're going to get hit in waves. And I think I've heard you say there's 17 different dates, probably all in the year 2023.
Yeah.
It's really going to change.
Those are very dangerous. Imagine this past gamma ray that came through, right? It's going to end up causing some cancer within people. But imagine that at least 1,000 times greater, right?
Wow.
To the point where a person, if they were standing outside, it would burn every piece of hair off of their face and probably give them 3rd-degree burns on their skin, right? In every exposed area where the light shines. There will come a day when no one will be able to let sunlight touch them. That day is coming. And so people are going to do whatever they have to do. They're going to put black stuff up their windows, whatever they have to do, but they won't be able to let sunlight hit them. The reason why is because the earth is sputtering already. And if it changes its rotation, we're going to have a collapse in our magnetosphere, big time, at least for a few hours. Could be for, I don't see us surviving a few days. It could be for a few hours. How do we know this? Because the earth has reversed its direction. I believe the count now is over 20 times. Over 20 times.
In its history.
Over 20. And every time they check, the more they dig, the more they find out that the earth has these cycles that have really put an end to civilization more than a few times.
Yeah.
And so we're going to entertain but it seems like there's a conflagration of these events from different areas, all happening at one time.
Revelation 16, verse 8, and the 4th angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire, and men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God, which had power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. Now, the same time that was happening, the next angel, it says, the 5th angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast. And the kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. So, sounds like kind of in the same breath, when the sun is volatile, when the heat and this microwavable events, atmospheric events or climate events on the earth start happening, and people start getting scorched like microwave, like heat, we're also going to see the establishment of the beast kingdom, its seat being established. Kind of going hand in hand here.
Yeah, they get fried. They'll get fried. They'll certainly get fried.
They're going to get fried because
I'm so glad, I believe, because Pastor Paul, these events sound so odd, so strange, and everything else.
Right.
But God uses His creation for whatever He so desires, and men do their best through science to track what God has already done. But these events they're real. They have observed these things happening all over the place. And there's so many people out there. It's not real to them yet.
No.
Unfortunately, when it becomes real to them, they're going to wish they had a better relationship. You know what, Pastor Paul, one time somebody asked me, why do you do what you do? It's because I know what it's like to wish you had done something when it's too late.
Wow.
I know what that's like. And I know what it's like when it costs people lives, right? When people actually die because you didn't do something you could have done earlier. I know what that's like. And there are people out there right now, Pastor Paul, this is a passive conversation to them. They're not going to take it serious. They're not going to consult or do anything else. And when the time comes, they're going to be the first ones yelling out, God save me. Right? Yep. But the answer God gave in the Bible to a certain, I'm not going to mention who he gave it to, but he said, go let the God you've been serving help you out. Yep. I won't hear you during that.
He said, I won't hear them. He said, when your destruction cometh like a whirlwind, I will mock at your calamity. Yeah. I will laugh.
It doesn't have to be that way.
We don't have to. So in other words, what we're telling everybody right now is these events are happening and are going to intensify. But if you, the believer, give your life to Christ and walk by faith and live the way Christ wants you to live in your heart with your fellow man, you don't have to suffer these things. Okay? He said, you won't have to. He'll make a way that when there seemeth to be no way.
We're not meant for it.
No, they're not meant for us. No.
Not meant for that. No. We've had our trials and tribulations in the earth. And there is a certain point, I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with it, but there's a certain point, Pastor Paul, that the full accountability of those on the earth are those who are not redeemed.
Oh, I know. Amen to that.
They're not redeemed, and they face the wrath. We're not appointed to it.
That's exactly.
But what we face, we have to do what we can do today, right? That's right. Before we're supposed to do it by faith.
We got to do it right now.
We don't need a star to blow up to do the right thing. We ought to do it every single day. Amen. Because the day will come when people start seeing these things. How then can you do something by faith? And it's impossible to please God without faith. So, this is it.
This is it. So take this conversation, folks. Take this conversation seriously. That this is the prophetic words of God speaking. Some of it knowledge that we've acquired, or Mike has maybe been able to get access to, all of which confirms the word of God. So start living for Jesus. Accept him as your Lord and Savior, and start living by faith while you can now, and instead of trying to find faith when all hell's breaking loose. That's what I'm hearing you say, Mike.
That's right. That's right. Don't. Nobody should, because they could. Their life is they have a victory with Christ. That is the only way. Every other way it really is a fool's way. Yes, and they're going to find out too late that, but Jesus will say to those who stand before him, if they don't make it, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you. And if even that tells you something, that if God has marked a person, they're going to be saved. They're going to have that victory. Yes. But there are some who just don't belong to him, and they will drag people down, as many as they can, Pastor Paul. But people, if they take it serious now, they don't have to go through a bunch of stuff.
Thank you.
To discipline themselves, right? To find that relationship with Christ. If somebody could take my brain and just take all the mishaps, Lord knows I have a lot of mishaps in my life. If they could take those mishaps and lessons, they wouldn't have to go through any of what I went through, Pastor Paul. They could just walk so easy, right? So easy. But it takes somebody who has gone through it first, to try and tell somebody else, don't take that path, right? Don't take that path. Take the righteous path. Don't do that way. Amen. And Pastor Paul, you do that every day. It's a blessing. You're like a hub. A ministry hub is what you are.
Well, let me one last thing then, Mike. Okay, so we're doing the Halloween Unmasked, Monday night. Your presentation, I can't even explain. A lot of times people say, man, last night Mike really was dropping bombs and really giving us some great info. I mean, your presentation on this Halloween Unmasked is maybe the greatest one. I mean, so you didn't hold back. I don't think. If you did, I'd woo. But you really let us know what's going on, and I appreciate that, and I hope you can encourage folks that they should really watch this and be touched.
Yeah, you know what? It's what I was talking about, Pastor Paul, is actually happening right now, and it is just, what? I would even go so far as to encourage people about that one subject I was talking about. I went to, right after we recorded that, I went and found a documentary on that subject.
Okay.
They should educate themselves to see exactly how Satan worked back then, because he's doing it right now. He's doing it right now.
Wow.
And if a person could catch this, they won't fall prey to it, because there were so many innocent people that were caught up in this thing. And we, none of us can deny that innocent people suffer every single day. They suffer every single day. They don't have to be a part of that. This thing is happening now, and we can't fold. You can't give in to the enemy, thinking that somehow the enemy is going to save you, that he won't hurt you. No, because Satan is out to destroy the saints. In fact, everything happening on earth, everything happening in the heavens, all this stuff that we see and we talk about is against the saints in some way.
Amen.
We're the story here. It's all about us, the saints. Jesus will either fully redeem us, or Satan will absolutely corrupt us and get us to turn against Christ in every single way he can. And I'm hoping that people will not let him ruin their families, their personal lives, because all of it can be in the hands of Christ. And Satan can't touch anything that belongs in the kingdom of God. He can't touch a thing.
Amen. Amen.
But it takes knowledge. Sometimes you have to be aware of things that are happening around you. And you can find out the hard way. Or you can listen to those who have observed it before, or know about it, or something like that, so that you don't have to go through it.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I really appreciate it. It was a late night for you, but thank you so much.
That's all right, Pastor Paul. It's always an honor. And I'll see you next time.
Okay. Amen to that. God bless.
God bless you.